Okay, we are back on Play It Forward with Janice Engel, nominated by Mary Lou Belli. Janice Engel is the co-producer, director, the editor of an incredibly powerful documentary called What We Carry, Dame Mary Barraco. Janice, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Wow. I was really moved. What a story that, somebody can endure what happened to them in a life and continue living. It's really just a testament to humanity. What was the inspiration? What was that kernel, that seed in you that wanted to pursue this?
Well, my producing partner Amber Howell and I created. This is one of 8 of profiles we do on people, survivors of the Holocaust. We felt that Holocaust education was it's ongoing, but in certain areas it was lacking. And part of the problem was that in this one particular area, at a certain time period, people who had been survivors, first witnesses, whatever, were starting to pass away. They were dying, as they are now. We're still, the Holocaust is not really taught. A lot of people, a lot of kids coming up don't even know about it. Um, so that was the immediate of why we took on creating a series called, the series is called What We Carry, and it's stories of survival. That after we did our first 4, our next batch, of which Mary was in, and I think it's one of our best one, became not just about Jews who had survived the Holocaust, but about Mary is she rescued. She was she she basically hid children and did all sorts of stuff, and her story is so unique. We also had a liberator who was an American GI, Bill Jukes. Um, who didn't, it was from Neosho, Missouri, didn't even know what a Jewish person was, and basically signed up with the call to a war before he graduated high school, and was part of Patton's Forward First, and liberated a little known death camp called Gunskirchen Lager. So that story is very powerful. They're all powerful in their own right. And the thing about What We Carry, and I'm just going to, what the whole point of it is it's not just about films about these people's lives and what they did. It is first person. It's only that person telling their story. There's no other voices. So it's also about memory. It's about our memory, and within that is, I think, a way to connect to, as humans, our shared humanity, because there's something that always just takes us to that moment that hits us in here. And that's the point of What We Carry. The other thing was that just being a documentary film couldn't work. What had happened was the Speakers Bureau in Norfolk, Virginia, was losing their survivors. So one of them came to Amber, my partner's mother-in-law, said, "Oh, Amber makes films, she makes documentaries." And so Amber reached out to me. I had originally been her boss a long time ago, but that's a whole other story. But we came up with this idea, and we realized came up with What We Carry because you have all these images of people going to train platforms with all their belongings, and you have it now, refugees, people fleeing oppression of whatever sort. And so what do we carry? Well, we carry our memories. We carry that which keeps us going, or not, to that extent. So we came up with this idea of interviewing just the person whose first person narrative it is, their story. And then at the time we were doing it, it was like we said, well, this is supposed to be for, say, junior high school up, and shown in schools, military bases, all sorts of things. And so it started out first was for schools. But we realized that there had to be some way to connect, especially kids, because they have short attention spans. So rather than making one whole short, because originally they were going to be somebody's life maybe broken in maybe about 15 to 20 minutes, just from a 2 to 3 hour interview, culled down. But we realized that short attention span. So we broke it up, as you saw, into chapters. But what accompanies each of these films is a suitcase. That's what we carry. And a suitcase is created and within it has milestones of that person's journey of survival, which is recreated by an artist we work with. And it becomes completely tactile. So that, for instance, I'll give you an example. I'm not talking about Mary, I'm talking about David Katz, who basically escaped with his parents from Berlin. His father was a concert violinist, his mother a pianist. They ran for their lives. They made it into France. They hid him in an orphanage. They got picked up by the Vichy and the SS. They got shipped off to Auschwitz. He was hidden, but then they got word, and they were bar mitzvahed inside this orphanage. And the day after they got word that the Vichy and the SS were coming for the boys, and he and another kid jumped out the window. He left the violin. His father gave him the violin, said you traded for bread. And he took off. And he remembered that he was just turned 13. He remembered that his father had told him, go to the Swiss border, you'll be safe, because they were neutral. So he walked 500 miles to the Swiss border, got there, and there was SS. And then he got picked up by the French resistance, who had been tracking him. And he became a courier and was hidden by a farmer. But within his suitcase were the shoes that he had worn to walk 500 miles. In the suitcase was the little enamel pin given to him by the French resistance. In the suitcase was the violin. So kids, it becomes tactile, and they go, whoa, it really hits them. And we got lots of letters, and it was interesting with kids in junior high. The boys were like, I can't believe David Katz walked 500 miles, because that's what they relate to at the same age. So it's interesting. I had another friend from New Zealand we did a big screening at the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles for our first four, and then for the one that you saw with Dame Mary Barraco and the two others. And he said, this should be mandatory viewing for every 16 and 17-year-old, should be mandatory viewing in high schools all across America. And I said, why? And he said, because if I hear one more time my 16 and 17-year-old daughter say their life sucks, they need to watch this film. So it makes it very relevant. So that's the immediate reason. You asked about the kernel, but the real kernel for me is very personal. And if you want me to tell that, I'm happy to tell.
Absolutely.
Because I know that's what you want, but yes, I did
Absolutely.
what we carry, but it's not, that's an educational thing. When I was 11, I grew up, I'm Jewish, I'm from New York. I was not religious at all. My parents were Reform Jews. I wasn't bat mitzvah, none of those things. And right now I'm a secular Jew. I'm culturally Jewish. I have no relation particularly. I like certain things. I like Passover, but I'm not a practicing Jew that way.
Totally get it.
I call myself a Hindu. It's all about your spiritual path. And my spiritual path, I've lived in an ashram. My spiritual name is Ganga. It's
cool.
Embrace
Yeah.
it. It's about our shared humanity. And I think religion is the basis of most of the problems in the world, and particularly in terms of patriarchy. So anyway, they showed a film. I was going to Sunday school. It was all social, really. They brought in a film from the Holocaust called Night and Fog. That was the first film ever made about the death camps by Alain Resnais, French film. And I was 11, and they showed it to us at the kids who were of a certain age. And nowadays you can't have that in there. You can't show the camps. Jesus, I was 11, and that was the first film that really showed footage of what the Nazis had done, the level of extermination and torturing. And I was 11, and I remember sitting in the class. It was a screening, in the 16 millimeter, and several kids got up and they ran out. I stayed for the whole thing. And I went home, and I didn't, nobody had known. I knew my mother had lost her brother. And she would hear a German accent, and she would stiffen. And she grew up, she was born in Brooklyn. Her parents ran from the Russians, but that was always these markers. And I came home and I told her, I was crying. I was really freaked out, and I had nightmares for like 2, 3, 4 weeks. Well, that seed, I never knew I was going to create a Holocaust education program. I made films. I didn't even, I mean, I jokingly say I fell backwards into making documentaries. That's a whole other story. But because I started out wanting to do narrative, but um, Amber in 2010, she came to me, and it was funny because that is the root. I was so touched. I never forgot that film and how it affected me. And when she said, I said, absolutely. It was like, I need to share because it all is, our shared humanity. It's about sharing. I teach now too. Teaching is about sharing. It's about sharing. And, so that's why I wanted to hear these stories from people, first person narratives that we could put into this format that would make people not forget, but also have an understanding of what we are capable of doing and what we're capable of doing, both negative and positive. And so the kernel for me at 11 years old, that is the kernel. That's
Yeah, that's
that film,
beautiful.
Fog. I never forgot it. And through everything else, my whole trajectory, I mean, 40 plus years later, I
Yeah,
created
yeah,
what we
yeah,
carry. So
yeah,
that's what brought us. And Dame Mary Barraco's is one of our best stories because she is incredible what she did. Resistance fighter.
yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't know, and she was knighted by the Flemish government,
Mm.
and she's still not considered a righteous. I hate this term, righteous Gentile, by Yad Vashem. She
Right.
had no papers to, but I mean, her whole story has been documented, and they have everybody has their rules for
Mm,
whatever. But
mm.
what she did is extraordinary, as you saw,
Yeah,
and what
right.
she survived herself, and
Yeah,
she never gave up anybody to the
yeah.
and resistance.
Never gave up anybody. Well, that's, the second question is, what is the message of Dame Mary um, Barraco, especially, particularly? I know you've made other films, but what do you get out of that film when you watch it as the message of the movie?
You have to look at it in the context of the times, but I don't think that really matters. I think as human beings, there's something that we do all share, which a lot of us forget about because of fear. But I think it's that willingness and a need to help another human being or to help another living thing. It is a responsibility. Not everybody wants that responsibility. But, like I said before, it's really simple. And I think we've forgotten this. We're one species. This is one planet. Y'all who are going to Venus, good luck with that. So we have a responsibility to each other. And right now we're in very polarized times. I myself get, I'm a, I live on the other left coast. What's so interesting is how it's flipped. But our inability to come together to find common ground, and we do have common ground, and the ability to reach out and help somebody less fortunate. It's sad, but we don't. And I think in times of war, in times of serious crisis, look at what's going on in Ukraine. It's a perfect example. There is this need to want to help. Now, then it's, of course, it's across, I'm going to say it, racial, it's colorblind. Because if you look at it, yes, it's the first world. Ukrainians are white, most of them. And so they're the refugees, everybody's but then what about people from Syria? How come they don't they get offered but the refugee status, but it's not, there's always limitations because it's because of the tribalism. And so, I mean, the message, Mary's story is about doing what you need to do
Mm.
to help others if you can. I mean, listen, I live in LA, it's like we have homeless is insane. And thank you, Ronald Reagan, for deregulating um, all the hospitals back in the 70s. I mean, that is part of the problem, deregulating. I want to say deregulating mental illness. Um, But 75 to 80% of the people on the street have mental illness or some sort of drug problem, or veterans, PTSD, whatever it is. But it is terrible. And you get it. You live in a nice neighborhood and people are like, well, not in my backyard. I'm not going to. So, yeah, well, it is your backyard, and, the fact is that those borders and those boundaries are gonna come down as more and more people are in need, because we're coming to another crisis, and we're in a crisis. So, how do you help? I mean, and here's the thing, I always have this, it's a very idealistic dream, and I this is so many years ago, I thought one day in another time of crisis, I mean, I think we were going into the Iraq War, God, that administration seems positively presidential. Um, And I just thought, wouldn't it be amazing if it's like a domino effect. If there would be one day or one 24 or 48-hour period in the world, doesn't matter which time zone, that within that period, everybody on the planet did one act of kindness for another living being thing. What? Just with that, it's like a Jungian thing. With that whole, would it just flip? Would it just I don't know, it's an
I
ideal
like that idea. Why not?
it's just an idealistic, like, if everybody
Celebrate Kindness Day.
one act of, and there have been things that have been done like that, but, and people have tried, and it's just, it's just a one act of kindness.
Well, thanks. I definitely think the message of doing what is in your heart and what you feel necessary and called to do, and actually taking action on that, is a powerful message. And Dame Mary Barraco definitely did that, and then some. Since you made that movie and others in the series, how have you been changed as a filmmaker, or how have you been changed as a person?
Oh, well, when it's funny, when did that with Amber, we took it out in 2010, and I was show running. I was making a lot of doc series and show running and directing, writing, producing. I Around 2012, when I started working on my feature documentary, uh, at the same time, I kind of just realized that I only really needed to do things that really mattered to me. And that, thank God, I got to be able to teach. I apparently I'd said 25 years ago I'm going to teach, and I said, really? Yeah, my wife reminds me, and our dear best friend who recently passed away, he had said, yeah, oh yeah, you said you already. I said, I don't even remember that, but it makes sense. I love teaching, and it also helps me to pay bills. But and because it I love it because it's about sharing. I love to share, and I had always done that on all my films I made and all the crews I put together. And they used to jokingly call it, this one company I worked at for quite some time. They used to call my shows, and when I did Janice Engel's film school, and I would just throw people out in the field. I'd bring them in, I'd let them get them into organizing, see what their skill set was, and then I would, ones who had the passion to want to shoot, I would just, I'd throw them out in the field. It's like, I love that. And I love the big thing I always say when I'm with anybody, and sharing that is, especially if you want to be a creative, person, and you want to do whatever it is, whether you're a painter, whether you're a writer, whether you're a musician, whatever it is, what sparks that is the big C word: curious. How curious are you? That's what also helps us to explore our ability to want to reach out to others. Why do you want to make a film about something? How curious are you? You're curious about the human condition or something. It's curiosity. Curiosity. Curiosity, kindness. And I think that the big thing for me is doing things that matter, things that will open people's heart, because that's what we all share. If
I'm
we
with, I'm with that. I'm with that. Thank you so much, Janice. I really appreciate
Fantastic.
your work and your inspiration. Thank you for sharing it with us. And I look forward to more from you and wishing you all good things, all blessings.
Same back at you. And yeah, I mean, we're in times that require us, all of us,
Yeah,
to make that extra, because I think we have to make an extra effort to keep our hearts open. It's
that's
hard.
right. That's right. It is.
It
It
really
is. It is.
is
I'm
hard.
reminded of the image of Hanuman
Oh, God of service, of course.
ripping his chest open to bare his heart. Yeah,
Beating inside, Ram, Ram, Ram,
yeah,
Ram, Ram.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Thank
the
you, Janice.
my pleasure.
All
Thank
right. All
Tassia.
right. Till next time.
Yeah.
Thanks for being show. Bye bye. Namaste.
Na namaste.